Hello, I am William Gerstein, board certified immigration and nationality attorney, and I'm going to be speaking to you today on how to prepare for a naturalization interview. The first thing that you need to know is what do you need to bring with you? And there are all types of different cases, so I'm going to speak in general about what is needed. And then when I have individual preparation meetings with clients and there are specific issues, then we would tell them what additional items they would need to bring. But for everybody, you would need your appointment notice, your green card, all passports in your possession, even if they're expired, and your driver's license or state ID. What happens is you show up to the immigration building, you present your appointment notice, you're admitted through security, you check in at a front desk, you're sent to a waiting room. When you get to the waiting room, you listen for your name. When your name is called, you will follow an officer back to their room. They will tell you to remain standing as they swear you in. They will then take the appointment notice and the three forms of identification that I previously mentioned. In front of you, when you are seated in front of the officer, will be an iPad or a tablet. You will see on the iPad a sentence displayed, and you will read it out loud to the officer. Then the officer will dictate a sentence in English to you, and you will write it on the iPad using a stylus or your finger. The iPad will have lines on it, just like notebook paper, and you can use as many lines as you want. You don't have to stuff it all into the first line. And I recommend that you print as opposed to using script, which sometimes can be harder to read. Next would be the history and civics test. So from the 100 questions and answers that you would have been given to study, they will ask you verbally 10 at random. It's not multiple choice, and they will type down your answers. Once you answer 6 correctly, you are done. If you cannot answer 6 correctly, then the interview will be continued to another date where you will be given a second chance, but you only get 2 chances. After you pass the history and civics, the interview itself begins. The form is mostly background information. So it has all names that you've ever used, your date and country of birth, information about parents if they were citizens, information about your marital history and your children, as well as where you have lived and worked for the past 5 years. It also asks about your travel during the statutory period, which is generally 3 or 5 years. You also have to come prepared with a list of any travels that were made from the date of the application up to the date of the interview. Then the interviewer will ask you about 40 to 45 eligibility questions. These are things that tell the examiner that something more may have to be looked into. So the questions will be about crimes, immigration violations, false claims to U.S. citizenship and voting, and other factors that could make people ineligible, such as non-payment of taxes, back due taxes, or not supporting your children. Then you will be asked several questions about the oath of allegiance. These are questions where generally you'll be saying yes, whereas to the eligibility questions, for the most part, most people would be saying no to these. So for the oath of allegiance, they will say, do you understand the full oath of allegiance, which basically means that your loyalty is to the U.S. over your country of birth or citizenship? Do you agree with the U.S. Constitution and form of government? Are you willing to take the full oath of allegiance? Then there are 3 questions that say if the law requires it. As of the filming of this video, the law does not require most of these things, but it'll say if the law requires it, are you willing to bear arms on behalf of the U.S.? If you're not a male between 18 and 26, this generally would not apply to you. But yes, you would say yes, you are willing to bear arms on behalf of the U.S. if the law requires it. The next question says, if the law requires it, are you willing to perform non-combatant services in the U.S. Armed Forces? Think about being a mechanic or a chef in the Army. And then finally, the last question says, if the law requires it, are you willing to perform work of national importance under civilian direction? Imagine if there was a hurricane or some kind of natural disaster, and FEMA, which is the Federal Emergency Management Agency, comes to your neighborhood and says, will you please help us hand out these bottles of water or sleeping bags or whatever it may be to these folks that need it. So you would say yes to that too. That kind of brings you towards the end of the interview, and your attention will be called back to the iPad. On the iPad, they will display any changes that were made to the application. For example, if you traveled between the day you submitted the application and the day of the interview, obviously this would need to be updated. So on the iPad, the examiner will display this additional information. You will be able to flip through the iPad with your finger. If everything's correct, you'll see a pink box at the bottom. You tap it, you sign it with the stylus or your finger, press accept, and it goes back to the examiner. The next screen on the iPad will display what information appears on your certificate: your name, your date and country of birth, your height, and your marital status. If everything is correct, just tell them. If it's incorrect, just tell them what to fix. Sometimes they'll print it out, ask you to sign it, and then scan that piece of paper. The last screen shows the oath of allegiance, the same questions that we just went through. You can flip through it, tap the pink box, sign it, and press accept. That's truly the end of the interview. The examiner at that point would give you a notice that says, congratulations, you passed the test, and we're recommending you for approval. If somebody's been arrested or has child support issues or has a record of voting in the United States or anything else that may cause a complication, we would talk separately about how to address those matters. I hope that this helps everybody to get prepared.